I do find it really impressive that this movie was made almost entirely from people's homes, during the quarantine and all that. But then after watching this movie, I was like, I didn't hear John Ratzenberger anywhere in there. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, John Ratzenberger does not have even a small voice cameo in this movie. I mean, this is Pixar, right? Luca. So Luca is the newest movie from Pixar Animation Studios, and just like Soul before it, it is a straight to Disney Plus release. It's not in theaters, except for it's at the El Capitan in Hollywood for a limited time. But anyway, this movie takes place around the Italian coast, and it's about sea monsters. Young Luca is a sea monster. He's growing up in his little underwater sea monster community, and it is pretty typical Pixar formula. We've seen this in a few, even Disney animated movies before, where his parents are like, no, you can't go up to the surface because it's dangerous up there. But then Luca ends up going because he makes a new friend named Alberto, and so they have their adventure in this Italian town of Porto Rosso. They meet this girl named Giulia. She has dreams and aspirations, and so the three of them work together to triumph for their own mutual gain. And now we have our fun Pixar movie. And this is a pretty fun Pixar movie. I don't know if I'm gonna praise this one as much as, Coco and Monsters Inc. and all the other top tier Pixar movies, but I still had a pretty good time with it. I liked it more than Onward, but not as much as Soul. There you go, there's your metric. First off, our three main characters, they're all really good. Luca is voiced by Jacob Tremblay, who you may know from the movie Room. And he's really curious about the world since this is his first time really seeing it. His head is in the clouds a lot. He's a good kid, you do want to root for him. And then there's Alberto, who's voiced by Jack Dylan Grazer, which, dude, I think this kid's a really great actor. And I love seeing him get work ever since It. And then he showed up in Shazam. I was like, this kid's going places. I think he's gonna be around for a while. Good for him. And yeah, his voice acting was really good in this movie. And then there's Giulia, and this is funny. I was watching this movie last night with my mom and my brother, and my mom and I both thought that she sounded so much like Lucy from Peanuts that she must have been voiced by the same girl who voiced Lucy in the Peanuts movie. She's not, she's voiced by someone completely different, but that's just the observation we made. Cause just listen to her in the movie, she sounds exactly like Lucy from Peanuts. Giulia is a great character though. She's feisty, she's optimistic, she wants to get it done, she has a lot of energy, and it's contagious. In fact, that's always contagious when kids have a lot of energy and they're playing around and they're yelling and laughing and having a good time. That's always good vibes, right? It's a feel-good thing to watch in a movie. Although I will say, Giulia's voice in this movie is not the only thing that reminded me of Peanuts. Some of the animation even, like with the characters, like when they laugh, I was like, it looks like a Peanuts character laughing. That's not a criticism to the movie, it's more of an observation, but I'm just saying though, sometimes the way the characters move reminded me of the characters from Peanuts. Not a bad thing, cause I love the Peanuts gang. The animation in this movie, it's nice. I mean, the town of Porto Rosso, it looks really good as per usual with Pixar. It's not the most visually impressive movie I've seen from Pixar, I'll be honest. It's not like Coco where I'm just blown away by the sheer volume of all the detail that went into this place. Cause really, as far as locations go in this movie, there are no locations in this movie that are as big as the Land of the Dead in Coco, for example. There's not really a scene in this movie where you see this enormous place and you're like, whoa, look at this animation, it's beautiful. Now, of course, I'm not saying the animation in this movie looks bad. It looks really good. It's just not as grand in scale as we've seen other Pixar movies be. One thing that kind of brings this movie down for me is that it does move pretty fast. I felt the pacing in this movie did rush quite a bit. And really, that's not the fault of the length of this movie, cause it's about as long as most Pixar movies are. But I felt that most other Pixar movies do take their time to tell their stories, and they do them very well. This movie, Luca, doesn't really seem to take its time. It doesn't give the audience room to breathe. And movies that rush, whether they're animated or live action, what they don't seem to realize is that if they just slow down a little and add like just 5 seconds to the end of a scene, for a reaction shot or something, that allows the drama of a scene to sink in with the audience. It gives them time to marinate. They're like, oh yeah, okay, there's the scene, it has breathing room. And then you can move on to the next scene. This makes dramatic scenes more impactful. But if you don't give an audience that breathing room and you just go right to the next scene without taking a small break, then the drama won't sink in and it won't be as impactful. It won't mean as much. Or at least that's how I see it. And I see this more and more with movies these days. They rush through dramatic scenes, and I'm not as impacted by them as I would be if they had given me breathing room. Just take a second. 5 seconds is all you need. After the dialogue is done, just take 5 seconds of silence or something for a reaction shot with the characters. Let me feel it, and then you can move on, like I'm about to my next point. The movie is good, like I said. It follows a certain animated movie formula that we've seen in Pixar movies and Disney animated movies alike, but aside from the rushing, it does work in this movie. You do still care about the characters and what they're trying to do. There's evolution in the characters and the plot as it goes on. It is pretty formulaic, and it does get predictable at a point. Like about halfway through the movie, I was like, alright, this is how the movie's gonna end, and I was right. But as I've said in previous videos, just because a movie is predictable, that doesn't make it bad necessarily. That's actually another argument argument I've had to make recently. Like with the movie Avatar, for example. Is it predictable? Yes. Is it a great movie? Absolutely. Avengers Endgame, you ultimately knew that everyone was gonna come back in some way, shape, or form. And that was the main point. But guess what? You enjoyed the movie anyway. This movie, Luca, yes, it is formulaic, it is predictable, but it's still very enjoyable. And actually, it's kind of funny. I did see elements of different Pixar movies in this movie. Like, I definitely saw elements of Finding Nemo. Ratatouille, there's this one character, Ercole. He pretty much reminded me of a young Chef Skinner from Ratatouille. I saw elements of Coco in this movie. I even saw some elements of WALL-E. So this movie's kind of like a bunch of Pixar movies went splat, here's a movie. Of course, that's not a bad thing, since all those Pixar movies I listed are great movies, and mathematically, positive plus positive plus positive plus positive equals a big positive. So there you go. I will say, physics-wise, there are some points in this movie where it gets a bit unrealistic. Like, the kids are up in a treehouse, and when they wake up in the morning, the kid jumps down from the tree, and he's totally fine. I was like, that kid would have snapped his legs. You know, that's a pretty thin kid. He's not swole or anything. So realistically, that kid would have just broken both of his legs, and he'd be in enormous pain. Stuff like that does happen in this movie sometimes, but of course, it's not going for realistic. It's about sea monsters, for crying out loud. I'm just saying, if you have an eye for that kind of stuff, because I do, then it might take you out of the movie for a second. As for the score, it was composed by Dan Romer, who I've never heard of before, but it was really good. There were some pretty good themes in there. Of course, there were some Italian influences. There are points in the score where if you just close your eyes and listen to the music, you do feel like you're on a pleasant gondola ride. It's nice. So in the end, Luca, it's pretty enjoyable. It's a good time if you want to just have a nice movie night with your family, or whoever it is that you love, or just by yourself. Give it a watch, enjoy it, you'll have a good time. Good characters, good story, good animation, good music, good everything. Again, for me, I liked it more than Onward, but not as much as Soul. So Luca, have you seen it? What do you think about it? And since I'm in a travel-y kind of mood right now, what is your favorite travel destination? Where have you been, or where do you want to go that is like, yeah, that's the place right there? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.